Have you ever felt like you're living someone else's life? That even when everything seems stable on the outside, a job, a relationship, a daily routine, there's something inside you that is quietly broken? No one notices. Maybe not even you can explain it. But you feel it. A muted pressure in your chest, a low hum of restlessness wrapped in boredom, indifference, exhaustion. And it's in this subtle fracture that your tragedy begins. You were taught early on to run from that feeling. You were told that a good life is a calm life. That suffering means you're doing something wrong, that if you hurt, it's your fault. So you've learned to mask the ache, to act okay, to chase comfort and call it success. But nature doesn't lie. Only people do. And the lie they sold you is now turning you into something small, fragile, a shadow of your own potential. Nietzsche said the true force of life is not the desire for happiness, but the will to power. Not power over others, power over yourself. The strength to look your pain in the eye and walk into it anyway. The courage to take your broken pieces and build something sacred. The maturity to stop blaming the world and start transforming your own soul. If you feel stuck, if you feel unfulfilled, if you feel like you've somehow gone numb, maybe it's because you've been told to play it safe for too long. But life is not safe. Life is not polite. Life wants you raw, exposed, alive. You must go into the dark, stand at the edge of the unknown, throw yourself into what scares you and crawl out of it reborn, more aware, more present, more real. Because if you keep running, you don't just lose your goals, you don't just lose your spark, you lose your living soul. And this message, these words, they are not advice. They are a confrontation, a call to arms, a voice for the part of you that's been quietly screaming to be remembered. You don't know what it is yet, but you know this much. The typical path, the approved plan, the sensible life will never lead you to anything extraordinary. And once you've tasted that truth, there is no going back. Because when you truly understand what the will to power means, ignorance becomes unbearable. Laziness becomes unforgivable. And you begin to see all the silent ways the world has taught you to be less than who you truly are. If you have the courage to be misunderstood, to break the mold, to walk away from what feels safe, then this could be the first moment of a new man, a version of yourself you never truly believed existed. Nature once said, "What does not kill me makes me stronger." But the real question is this: are you ready to stop merely existing and finally begin to live? Nietzsche didn't write to comfort you. He didn't speak to be liked. Every sentence he gave the world was a hammer not for display, but to shatter the illusions quietly built into your mind by society, religion, and herd morality. And among those illusions, there is one more dangerous than the rest. That man was born to pursue happiness. Nietzsche called it a beautiful lie, a soft myth sold by churches, reinforced by politics, upheld by moralists to turn men into tame, compliant, controllable creatures, to make you docile, safe, weak. But the truth? Nietzsche looked directly into the core of human nature and said, "Man does not long for happiness. Man longs for power. We don't truly want peace. We want expansion. We want to grow, to stretch, to break limits and bend fate. And that will to surpass ourselves is what Nietzsche called will to power. Don't mistake it. This isn't about dominating others. It's not some corporate ambition or violent craving. It is the primordial energy in every cell of your body. Not a hunger for comfort, but a hunger to erupt. Not to rest, but to rise. It is the sacred fire that whispers, "Go forward, go deeper, go higher." But here's the truth you won't hear often. The will to power isn't outward, it's inward. It's not you versus the world. It's you versus yourself. It's every time you look in the mirror and refuse to accept what you've become. It's every decision that scares you, but you make it anyway. It's the moment you stop asking for permission to exist and start declaring, "I am the one who builds my own path." Nietzsche didn't offer shallow self-help. He laid the foundation of an entire philosophy, not about how to feel better, but how to become something more. A life lived from the inside out. A man formed not by applause, but by fire. One of the foundational pillars in Nietzsche's architecture of thought is what he called the revaluation of all values. A call to burn down the moral inheritance you never chose, the passive obedience, the blind humility, the inherited guilt that was handed to you like a chain in a velvet box. And from those ashes, you are asked to build something new, not based on fear, but on vitality. Not on submission, but on courage. Not on self-denial, but on a radical affirmation of life. No longer living to be accepted, but standing up spine straight, eyes clear and saying, I do not need salvation. I need challenge. Because salvation comes from someone else. But awakening, real awakening, only comes through pain that has been burned, carried, understood, and transformed. Nietzsche said, God is dead. But what does that mean? It's not a cry of rebellion. It's not an atheist tantrum. It is a philosophical obituary written for all the false absolutes this world has handed you. The dogmas, the universal truths, the moral systems that once told you who you were supposed to be, what you were allowed to feel, and how you were expected to live. And now, all of that has collapsed. There is no more priest, no more king, no more rule book to hide behind. Only you. You must now choose in a world with no crutches. Who will you become? Nietzsche throws you into this existential crisis not to break you, but to wake you, to strip away the scaffolding, so the real foundation, the one buried inside your own will, can finally be laid bare. Because in a world where there is no longer truth outside you, the real man must forge truth within. And then, there is another terrifying, beautiful idea. Eternal recurrence. Imagine this. You are destined to live your life exactly as it is. Every pain, every regret, every mistake, every failure. Not just once, but again, and again, and again, for all eternity. Could you bear it? If that thought makes your stomach twist, if it fills you with dread, with disgust, with despair, then Nietzsche says, you are living a life unworthy of being lived. And here, in this private, brutal, honest moment, you are asked one question. Can you live a life you would choose to relive forever? If not, then the work begins now. And in the end, Nietzsche hands you his final, most dangerous gift. The Übermensch, the Overman. Not a superhero, not a perfect being, but a man who has shattered mediocrity. A man who has escaped the herd, who no longer lives as a copy of someone else, but rises as the sculptor of himself. He does not follow the world. He shapes the world. He does not ask, what is the meaning of life? He gives life its meaning. These aren't just scattered ideas. The death of God, the eternal recurrence, the Overman. They are all satellites orbiting a single burning sun. The will to power. Because deep within every living thing, beneath every choice, every desire, every breath, there is a voice, ancient and raw, whispering, become more than what you are. And that voice is not a suggestion. It is a summons, a call to rise or to rot. But what happens when a man actually answers that call? What awaits the one who dares to grow? The answer is bitter, suffering. There is no ascent that does not draw blood. And Nietzsche knew this more than anyone. Suffering is not a glitch in the system. It is the system. You want to evolve? You want to become stronger, freer, sharper? Then prepare to bleed. Because the modern world has lied to you. It sold you the idea that pain means something is wrong. So it numbs you. With dopamine, with distractions, with cheap pleasures, with toxic positivity disguised as wisdom. Why? Because a weak man is easy to manage. But Nietzsche came to strip the mask off all of it, not to make you suffer more, but to tell you one simple, brutal truth. Suffering will not kill you if you learn to wield it. Suffering is not an accident on the path. It is the path. Nietzsche knew this better than anyone. Not from theory, but from blood and bones. He lived with chronic pain. He was rejected by the intellectual elites, ostracized by society, and left in a solitude so deep it nearly crushed his soul. But it was in that private hell that he forged the most powerful ideas Western philosophy has ever known. Because Nietzsche embraced what few dare to admit, suffering is the price of transformation. We live in a world that worships pleasure and exiles pain. Everything around you whispers, relax, take it easy, avoid stress, escape discomfort. Modern life teaches you, if something hurts, it must be wrong. But Nietzsche stood against it all. He called suffering an inner alchemy, a sacred furnace where the old self is burned away and something true is reforged in the ashes. He wrote, "One must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star." That's not a pretty quote for your Instagram bio. That is a death sentence for every man who lives on the surface. Because a real man is not born from calm. He is born from collapse. True courage only comes after you've tasted fear. Clarity only comes once everything has fallen apart. You want an example? It's the moment you finally say no, after being walked over one too many times. It's when you stand up alone, after a loss you thought would break you forever. It's when you whisper, "I will no longer be who I used to be, even if it costs me everything I've built." You do not grow in spite of pain. You grow because of it. For Nietzsche, suffering is the battlefield where the will to power is tested by fire. Only there, where you are stripped of all protection, where there is no one left to blame, where everything familiar has collapsed, do you finally discover who you really are. Because when life is going well, anyone can pretend to be strong. But when life tears you apart, when you are left alone with nothing but yourself and the demons inside your head, that's when you can become something the world will never be able to control. And precisely because of that, many have run away. They're not afraid of pain. They're afraid of the person they might become after walking through it. Have you ever felt like you're living a life that doesn't truly belong to you? That even though everything on the outside seems fine, the job, the relationship, the responsibilities, something deep inside is breaking, suffocating, slowly dying. A quiet pain no one sees. Maybe you can't even name it, but you feel it clearly. A wordless sorrow, a weariness disguised as laziness, a soul-level exhaustion in a life that has grown too familiar. And that's where the tragedy begins. Because you were taught to run from that feeling. Society, religion, and conventional morality told you that a good life is a peaceful life, that suffering is failure, that pain means something is wrong, and you believed it. But nature does not agree. Nietzsche does not agree. Nietzsche didn't write to comfort anyone. He wrote to wake them up. His words were, hammers not to be hung on walls, but to shatter illusions. And one of the most dangerous illusions he wanted to destroy was this: that man was born to seek happiness. No, Nietzsche said that is a beautiful lie. A seductive lie sold to you by religion, politics, and passive morality. Tools that tame men, weaken them, and make them docile. What man truly craves is not happiness, but strength, the urge to rise, to break through, to become something larger than who he was yesterday. That is what Nietzsche called the will to power. It's not about dominating others. It's about conquering yourself. It's the ability to turn every failure into a leap forward, to turn every wound into a tool for growth. It's the ability to look at yourself in the mirror, not to look away, but to confront, to say, I don't want to live one more day like this. To Nietzsche, suffering is the battlefield where the will to power is tested by fire. Only there, in the space where you're stripped bare of protection, where no one is left to blame, where everything familiar collapses. Only there do you find out who you truly are. Because when life is easy, anyone can pretend to be strong. But when the world rips you apart, when all you have left is yourself and the demons in your head, that is the moment when you can become something the world will never again be able to control. And that's exactly why so many men run away. They don't fear pain. They fear the man they might become after the pain. Have you ever felt like you're living a life that doesn't truly belong to you? Even though everything on the outside seems fine, the job, the relationships, the responsibilities, deep down, something is breaking. Something feels suffocating. Something is slowly dying. A silent ache no one else sees. Maybe you can't even name it, but you feel it. A wordless sadness, a fatigue disguised as laziness, an exhaustion born from a life that's become far too familiar. And that is where the tragedy begins. Because you were taught to escape that feeling. Society, religion, and moral convention told you that a good life is a peaceful life. That suffering is failure. That pain means something is wrong. And you believe them. But nature does not lie. And Nietzsche did not agree. Nietzsche never wrote to please. He wrote to awaken. His words were hammers, not for decoration, but for breaking illusions. And among the most dangerous illusions he tried to destroy was this: that man was born to pursue happiness. No, Nietzsche called that a lie, a seductive lie, sold to you by religion, politics, and passive morality. The kind that turns men into tame, obedient, weak-willed creatures. What man truly desires is not happiness, but power. Not comfort, but ascent. Not peace, but transcendence. To become something greater than what he was yesterday. That, Nietzsche called the will to power. It is not the urge to dominate others, but the drive to conquer oneself. It's the capacity to turn every failure into a leap forward. To turn every wound into a tool for maturity. To look at yourself in the mirror not to escape, but to confront. And to say, I refuse to live one more day like this. But the so-called peace that the modern world sells you is not wholeness, it is paralysis. A kind of spiritual anesthesia. A sleeping pill for the soul. You were taught how to survive, not how to live. You learned how to avoid conflict, avoid pain, avoid being truly seen. You learned how to please others, how to behave, how to smile on cue. Even when deep inside, your soul is screaming for help. And what's the result? A soul that has been tamed. A spirit that has withered. A man who could have been thunder, but chose instead to live as a whisper. Nietzsche would never accept that kind of life. He saw it for what it truly is: surrender. A betrayal of the noble fire each man carries within him. Because within you, even now, there is strength. There is a fire being strangled every day by your excuses, by the inherited beliefs you never question, by that quiet cowardice you call caution. Every time you stay silent when you should speak, you drain your own power. Every time you choose comfort over necessity, you drift further from the greatness you were built for. Every time you settle for less than what you deserve, you are telling the universe, I accept mediocrity. And here lies the most brutal truth. No one is coming to save you. There is no Messiah, no master, no government, no partner, no philosopher, no magic formula. Liberation does not arrive from the outside. It is only born the moment you make an uncompromising decision. The weaker version of me must die. The version that lives just to be accepted. The version that runs from pain. The version that needs validation in order to feel real. That version must die. Because as long as it lives, your strength remains in chains. But shattering that prison isn't easy, because it isn't made of visible bars. It's built from ideas, from beliefs, from the stories you keep whispering to yourself about who you are. And you've believed those stories for so long, you forgot. They are the very cage that holds your soul. Self-destruction, Nietzsche warned, is the disease of weak spirits, those who fear the weight of their own freedom. You want to live by your will to power? Then begin by breaking the invisible chains. Confront your fear of being wrong. Confront your fear of failing. Confront your fear of disappointing others. Because the more you try to protect yourself, the further you drift from your truth. Nietzsche believed that a man only becomes real, truly real, when he accepts the risk of being misunderstood, of being hated, of being rejected, all for a higher ideal, to become himself. But this leads us to the unavoidable question: what does it truly mean to overcome yourself? How do you transform? How do you begin that life or death conversation with your own reflection? What does real strength look like? In the hands of a man who has broken every mold to become more than he was told to be? Nietzsche brings us to a truth that only those who have stood at the edge of their own abyss can truly grasp. To overcome oneself is the purest form of power. Most people spend their entire lives trying to conquer the external world. They chase titles, applause, a higher salary, a more desirable body. They strive to prove something, as if other people's approval were the ultimate certificate of their worth. But Nietzsche destroys that shallow logic with a single, chilling truth. Real power is not in defeating others, it is in defeating yourself. And that is a battle 1,000 times harder. Because defeating others might be a matter of talent, but defeating yourself, that takes courage. Courage to face your own stagnation, to confront your laziness, your excuses, the lies you've whispered just to fall asleep each night, to strip away the ego that wears the mask of humility. This is not a war you wage in public. It is a quiet, invisible, solitary war that takes place every single day inside your own mind. And the truth? Most people give up before they've even begun. Nietzsche saw life not as a straight path, not as a ladder to climb, but as an eternal flow, a perpetual transformation, a never-ending becoming. Man is not a fixed being. He is an unfinished sculpture, a work of art that must be broken, remade, and reshaped continuously by the hand of the only artist who can do it, you. And Nietzsche, he does not comfort us with soft dreams. He does not hand us fantasy. He prepares us for war, because to transcend yourself is painful. It demands you betray the very version of yourself that once saved your life. The part of you that learned to survive, that learned to defend, to avoid, to hide. The part that once was your hero. But today, that version is the chain. And to become the man you're meant to be, you must kill it. Not in the literal sense, but in the deepest sense. You must let that self die. Like a snake shedding its skin. Like a phoenix burning in its own fire, only to rise again, reborn. Nietzsche does not romanticize this process. He knows to grow is to suffer. He knows maturity isn't linear. It spirals. There are days when you feel invincible, and nights when hope disintegrates in your hands. There are triumphs followed by collapses, clarity followed by confusion. But within that very chaos, something sacred is born. Because strength is not found in never falling, but in rising again each time, as a version of yourself stronger than the one who fell. To overcome yourself is to confront the part of you that desperately clings to the familiar. It is to say no, not to others, but to the old excuses you've whispered for years. It is to shatter the loops you've been circling in the patterns that have quietly drained the fire from your veins. It is to stare into the mirror, eye to eye with the man you've become, and whisper, with a love so ruthless it hurts, "I know you've been lying to me, and I'm done letting you delay our life." That is the moment you realize the pain of transformation is lighter than the rod of stagnation. And from that scorched ground, Nietzsche offers his most powerful symbol, the Übermensch, the overman. Not someone stronger than others, but someone brave enough to sever ties with herd morality. Someone who no longer lives to please, who no longer craves approval, who is content, no, compelled to live in truth. And to become that kind of man, you must learn to walk alone. No applause, no admiring glances, no gentle praise telling you you've done enough. Only one question echoing in the silence of your own heart. Today, did I dare become what I was afraid of yesterday? If you're ready to face what lies beyond, I will write more. But know this, what comes next is not for the man who still wants comfort. It is only for the man who is ready to burn for life itself. You cannot become the new if you keep clinging to the remains of the old. Nietzsche called this rebirth not in the romantic, poetic sense, but as a brutal metamorphosis. A rebirth where you let go of your name, your shape, your ego, all the things the world once gave you to make sense of yourself. No longer living as a product of your environment, but as a creator of meaning. Real power is not muscle, not status, not praise. Real power is the ability to resurrect yourself, to destroy the shell that once sheltered you, because it is now the prison. To break the self that once saved you, so a new one can rise, stronger, sharper, awake. But Nietzsche never wrote to comfort anyone. He wrote to set fire to illusions. And this journey of self-overcoming, it doesn't happen in some idealized world. It happens right here, in this distracted, pleasure-drenched, fractured society, where everything whispers in your ear. Stay small, stay tame, stay the same. And that is the greatest test of our age. How do you live with the will to power when the entire world wants to turn you into something obedient? Try living with intensity, they'll call you crazy. Try living with honesty, they'll say you're selfish. Try to grow, and they'll say you're arrogant. That is the dark paradox of our time. We praise freedom, but reward obedience. We encourage self-expression, and yet punish anyone who dares step outside the lines. We speak of change, but each day we drip-feed you dopamine to keep you safely locked in the same old shell. And if Nietzsche were alive today, he would spit on the ground and say, "You have been domesticated like livestock." We live in a society engineered to optimize comfort and eliminate confrontation. Technology does everything for us. The cult of wellness sedates the soul. Social media offers instant validation so that you never have to face the aching emptiness inside you. Everything is designed so you never have to ask the real questions. Just consume, smile, nod, and stay silent. But the will to power cannot survive in such a habitat. It suffocates. It withers. It dies like a seed trapped in concrete. If you want to live the way Nietzsche urged, you must accept becoming the outsider, the uncomfortable one, the one who doesn't parrot the approved slogans, the one who chooses the pain of truth over the comfort of ignorance. To live by the will to power today means to swim upstream against everything, against victim mentality, against the culture of instant pleasure, against the chronic fear of being judged. It means becoming a living threat to the dominant value system, the one that whispers, "It is better to be accepted than to be free." In this era, freedom is no longer doing whatever you want. Freedom is having the courage to do what must be done even if no one applauds you for it, even if the world calls you mad. Freedom is the clarity to recognize the manipulation buried beneath the pretty mask of entertainment, advertising, and sweet-sounding positivity, all of which are quietly pushing you toward cowardice and compliance. Freedom demands one thing, the courage to look directly. And once you see, you cannot unsee. The will to power doesn't let you keep asking, "What do others think of me?" It demands a deeper question. Who must I become? To live with meaning in an age addicted to distraction is to learn how to say a hard no, while everything around you begs you to say yes. It is choosing to be hated for your truth, rather than being loved for a version of yourself tailored to please the crowd. And this is not a poetic metaphor. This is an existential battleground. You will lose people. You will be mocked. You will be misunderstood. But in return, you will gain what no currency on this earth can buy: integrity, power, clarity, a soul that has never bowed. You'll look into the mirror and see a man staring back at you, not a product of society, not a puppet moving for approval, but a sovereign being burning, free, present,